So good morning to each and everyone. I am Christine N.S. Okoy and I will be discussing the Wechsler intelligence tests. So as you can remember from our previous semester, ako din yung nag-report ng intelligence testing, which is specifically ang Wechsler's tests and its versions lang. And for this reporting, we will really talk about its revisions, versions as well, and what's really in this intelligence tests. So we have our topic outline here, the Wechsler test, revisions, the verbal and performance scale, the full scale and subtests, and the standardizations of the WAIS 4. So to clearly understand the revisions and the versions of the Wechsler's various intelligence tests, let's discuss its different revisions of the scale. So to summarize this slide, the WAIS or the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Test designed to measure intelligence in adults and older adolescents, specifically in 16 to 90 years old. WAIS replaced the first ever Wechsler scale, which is the WBIS or the Wechsler-Bellevue Intelligence Scale. So the WAIS was followed by the publication of the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale revised due to revision of the administration, item, and scoring change. So the WAIS-R was replaced by the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale 3rd edition. WAIS-3, it retained the same subtests from the WAIS-R. However, 3 new subtests were added. So the last revision, which is the most advanced adult measure of cognitive ability, is the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale 4th edition or the WAIS-4. This is all based on recent research in the area of cognitive neuroscience and the theories and work of David Wechsler, PhD. So one of the versions of Wechsler's intelligence test is the WAIS-3 or the Wechsler's Adult Intelligence Scale 3rd edition. In this scale, there are 3 IQ scores, which is the verbal IQ, performance IQ, and the full scale IQ. And the 4 indices scores are obtained as well by the WAIS-3, which is the verbal comprehension, perceptual organization, working memory, and the processing speed. Since the WAIS-3 IQ and index scores are consistently the most reliable scores in terms of both internal consistency and retest reliability, I will be discussing by pointing out examples about the subtests used in this intelligence test. So this is an illustration of how the Wechsler tests looks like, but first we need, and it is important for us to understand the scoring system. So as shown in the figure, here in this slide, the normal curve is the distribution of IQ scores depending on how high or how low the score is. So the average score is expected to be more frequent on higher in frequency within the population. So the IQ score that are higher tend to be lower in frequency because there are not that many very smart people or genius around. At the same time, there are not that many people with low IQ in the population as well. So that is why intelligence scores are represented with a normal curve. And the table below the normal distribution is the classification of IQ scores, which is 100 is the average WAIS score, 85 to 115 is considered averaged, 110 to 120 is high average, 155 is the highest possible score, above 155 is superior range, and below 70 can indicate possible mental retardation. So it is formally called mental retardation, but today it is addressed as intellectual disability, may be accompanied by difficulties in functioning, including learning, self-care, and independent living. So for this slide, we will be discussing the full scale IQ. How do we get this score in our IQ? Where does that come from? So this is where we will discuss the full scale IQ. We are testing this full-scale IQ to look for this overall number, but with this, we are assessing the ability to perform verbally, but also perform in terms of mental activity and how quickly they can do things, testing the working memory and the perception as well. So even within the full-scale IQ, we can use those same numbers to analyze things from a verbal IQ standpoint as well as the performance IQ standpoint. So the test is broken down into these bigger category that made up the full-scale IQ. And each of these categories is also broken down further. So let's note that every questions in each subtest or every task will progress to higher levels of difficulty. So as I've said earlier, the full-scale IQ is broken down into two large categories, which is the verbal IQ and the performance IQ. And let us first discuss the verbal IQ. So this verbal IQ is looking at the Verbal Comprehension Index or the VCI and the Working Memory Index or the WMI. This index reflects an individual's ability to understand, use, and think with spoken language. It also demonstrates the depth of knowledge acquired from one's environment. It measures the retrieval from long-term memory of such information. So this test is comprises of various subtests that will be briefly discussed and described. So in verbal scales, or the Verbal Comprehension Index, it is composed of the first, vocabulary. So the vocabulary subtest requires the client to try to define a word up to 30 words. So these subtests assess the client's understanding of words and reflects the language development, expressive language skills, cultural and educational experiences, ability to use words appropriately, and the retrieval of information from long-term memory. So in this subtest, several words of increasing difficulty are presented both orally and visually. So the examinee is asked what each word means. So I will be presenting examples later after this slide. So it also composed with second subtest, which is the similarities. So the subtest consists of 18 pairs of words. The client is asked to identify the qualitative relationship between the two words. So this subtest reflects the abstract thinking skill, concept forming skills, and the verbal reasoning. So this is an illustrative of the general type of question that appears in this subtest. For example, pairs of words are presented to the examinee and the task is to determine how they are alike. The third is the information. The information subtest consists of 26 questions aimed at determining how much general knowledge the client has accumulated from their environment. So the subtest reflects the ability to learn and recall facts, intellectual curiosity, quality of education, alertness to the environment, and the retrieval of information from long-term memory. So in general, the question stops general knowledge and in part assess learning and memory. Interest, education, cultural background, and the reading skills are some influencing factors in the information subtest score. And lastly, we have comprehension, the ability to organize and apply knowledge, and what is colloquially referred to as common sense. So in each of which the examiner explains what should be done under certain circumstances. So after I've discussed how the subtest works, or how the subtest is requiring the examinee, so this is an examples. So these are the examples in the first large category, or the verbal IQ, which composed of the vocabulary, similarities, information, and the comprehension. So in this portion, we are still in verbal IQ, yet in the working memory index. So the working memory index is composed of arithmetic, digit span, and letter number sequencing. This index reflects an individual's ability to take in and hold information in immediate awareness and then perform a mental operation on that information. It also measures the mental manipulation of number operations. So first we have the arithmetic. The subtest consists of 22 timed arithmetic problems to be solved without the use of pencil and paper. So this subtest measures the calculation skills, problem solving skills, mental manipulation of number operations, and working memory. So learning of arithmetic, alertness and concentration, and short-term auditory memory are some of the intellectual functions tapped by this test. So this assesses working memory by having participants complete mental arithmetic problems. So again, I will be showing some examples after this slide. So we also have the digit span. Digit span consists of two separate sections, digits forward and digits backward. So this test measures auditory recall, short-term memory, and working memory. So entails the examiners verbally presenting a series of numbers with the examinee's task being to then repeat numbers in the same sequence. Orally presented lists of 3 to 9 digits are to be orally reproduced. So, in the second portion, the examinee must reproduce list of 2 to 8 digits backwards. So, dito na yung sinasabi na two separate sections, which is the digits forwards and the digits backwards. So, lastly is the letter number sequencing. So, this is orally presented in a mixed up order, which is letters and numbers, and the task is to repeat the list with the numbers in ascending order and the letters in alphabetical order. So in arithmetic, I have presented two examples. For the digit span, I also have two examples. The first example, which is the digits forward, and yung second is the digit backward. So our last subtest in this working memory index is the letter number sequence. So the example here is the examiner will say R3B5Z1C, and the examinee should respond 135BCRZ. So the examiner requires the examinee the ascending order of the number, and the alphabet is in alphabetically order. So let us now proceed to the other large category of the full-scale IQ, which is the performance IQ. So this index reflects an individual's ability to accurately interpret, organize, and think with visual information. So it measures nonverbal reasoning skills and taps into thinking that is more fluid and requires visual perceptual abilities. So in POI, we perceived it in our mind, and for the PSI, it analyzes how quickly can we do stuff. So first, we have the POI, or the Perceptual Organizational Index. So it includes the picture completion, block design, and matrix reasoning. So picture completion, it contains of pictures from which some part is missing. Examinee must tell what is missing from each picture. So the items gets harder and harder. Testing continues until the examinee misses several in a row. For block design, the subtest consists of two-dimensional designs which the client tries to copy using three-dimensional blocks. So these subtests can reflect visual motor skills, ability to analyze geometric patterns, and part-whole recognition skills. So a design with color blocks is illustrated either with blocks themselves or with the picture of the finished design. And the examinee's task is to reproduce the design. So these tests trust on perceptual motor skills, psychomotor skills, and the ability to analyze and synthesize. Lastly, we have the matrix reasoning. This is a nonverbal reasoning task in which individuals are asked to identify patterns in designs. So the subtest measures nonverbal reasoning skills, broad visual intelligence, and the perceptual organization skills. So in this slide, I have here examples. So in the first picture, in picture completion, in here, may mga bagay na kulang yung mga parte niya. And sa mga hayop naman, kulang yung parte ng katawan nila. So, ang task here is to determine if ano yung lacking sa pictures. So, ang second is the block design. So, ang block design dyan is yung may color red. So, we have the segmented types of blocks. And next to it is the reproduced type of blocks wherein naayos na ng examinee. So I am referring to the unsegmented version of the example sa block design. So the last example is about the matrix reasoning. It is a non-verbal analogy task designed to top perceptual organizing abilities in reasoning. So the participant was required to analyze a set of incomplete matrices and select the missing element from a set of options. So we are now in the last portion of the performance IQ, which is the processing speed index. So this index reflects an individual's ability to process simple or routine visual information quickly and efficiently. It measures visual and motor speed. Under the processing speed is the digit symbol coding and the symbol search. So the digit symbol coding, in this subtest, individuals are asked to record associations between different symbols and numbers within time limits. So this subtest reflects psychomotor speed, ability to absorb new material, visual motor speed, and the drive for achievement. So the examinee were given the dot and dash equivalents of several letters in Morse codes and then had to write it out in Morse codes as quickly as they could. So next is the symbol search. So the client, under time pressure, scans a search group and indicates whether one of the symbols in the target group matches. So this test measures the processing speed, working memory with visual stimuli. So this is an optional performance subtest found in WAIS 3. So the task is to visually scan two groups of symbols, which is composed of one search group and one target group, and then determine whether the target symbol appears in the search group. For digits coding, as you can see there, na meron siyang codes match with numbers. And sa ilalim naman is the symbol search. So meron tayong target group of symbols, and then the examinee quickly examines the search group of symbols and finally marks the yes or no box if they think meron yung hinahanap natin na symbol. So those are the examples of the subtest under the verbal IQs and the performance IQs, which is also under the full scale IQ. Let us now proceed to the standardization of WAIS 4. So I have said kanina, WAIS 4 is the most advanced and the latest revision of the Webster Adult Intelligence Scale. So first is the standardization sample was divided into 13 age bands. So the WAIS 4 was carefully standardized based on information acquired by the U.S. Bureau of the Census in 2005. The gender, race, ethnicity, education level, and the geographic location were carefully taken into account while stratifying the entire sample of 2,200 persons, which aged between 16 to 91. So the second is the standardization sample is likely healthier than its census counterparts since individuals suspected of even moderate cognitive impairment were removed. So the standardization sample specifically used a number of exclusionary criteria, which includes the uncorrected visual or hearing impairment, the current hospitalization, evidence of drug, alcohol problems, and a number of potentially brain impairment conditions. So such as the brain impairing conditions such as head injury, stroke, epilepsy, dementia, and the mood disorder. And lastly, there is also a difference in the standardization in WAIS 3 and WAIS 4. So the WAIS 3 was standardized using 2,450 participants ranging from 16 to 89 years of age, while the WAIS 4 included 2,200 participants ranging from 16 years of age to more than 90 years of age. As I tried researching for more updates about the WAIS, it still leads me back to WAIS 4. So that is why I reiterated here the things that I mentioned earlier and put some points as well. So although there is a significant amount of item overlap between the WAIS 4 and WAIS 3, the IQ results from the two tests are not comparable. Overall, the WAIS 4 test is considered as more difficult than the WAIS 3 test. So when being revised, there is a lot of input from practitioners and experts in the field. And over time and after several reviews, the WAIS 4 is included to represent significant advances in the understanding of the cognitive abilities. So the WAIS 4 contains the 10 score subtests and the 5 additional optional subtests. So these are summed to 4 indices, the same with the WAIS 3. That's all for my report. These are my references, and thank you for listening, and have a good day, everyone.